Get to the chopper!
You know what you are? You're one of those little fancy lads, aren't you?
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro. We figured we'd some little juice.
Greetings, Unkind Rewinders. Welcome to another pre-interview installment of the Unkind Rewind. This week we'll be chatting with Chad Byrnes, he's reviewer for the Village Voice and LA Weekly. Before that, I have some pod business to take care of. We got our first Apple Podcast review. It reads as follows. In a dimly lit world, here comes a beacon of light that will entertain you to your core. Tip of the cap to all involved. Sheer brilliance. John Ratzenberger. We'll just assume that's from Cliff. Other listener feedback. This one is from Twitter. I'm not really sure what this podcast is about, but I put it on to put my newborn to sleep. Within 30 seconds, she's out like a light. Couldn't live without this podcast. Julie from Halifax. Thanks, Julie. This is an email. This podcast is okay. I almost said good, but thought it too early to heap that much praise upon it. It's okay. Also, I know they just started, but no call-in line? Amateur hour. That's from Martha S. About that, Martha S., we do now have a call-in number that you can leave a voicemail at, which will then play on the podcast. You can now call in and leave messages, feedback, etc. at 507-479-6440. Next missive is from Chip from Clam Harbor, Nova Scotia. Really getting them from Nova Scotia. When are you going to do The Sandlot or On Golden Pond, you fucking cowards? Well, that's not really the way to get us to do a movie you want. And Sandlot sucks. Next one. I feel like you missed a golden opportunity to talk about how audacious it was that we featured Bowie's Wang as prominently as we did in a children's movie. Your loss. Also, I really liked Kay, but could we get a little less of the guys, especially Josh? He stinks. That one's from Jim Henson. Huh. Kind of hurts. Another email. A McGrath and a Dugan? That's too many people of Irish descent, if you ask me. Oh, not a good look, Lord John Russell. Not a good look. Penultimate one. I'll have you know, I was born without a butt crack. No makeup needed. Yours, one of the naked, doofy-looking aliens from Night of the Creeps. And the last one. I got this one via text. I don't think I'm the target audience for this, Josh. Mom. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for listening. All right, without further ado, we'll throw to Chad. His power was out. We talk about this eventually, but his power was out and we had to record this over the phone. So sound sometimes dips in and out. So, such is podcasting. Dumpster breaks. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to the Unkind Rewind pre-interview episode where we are touching base with our guest, Chad Byrnes. Chad, why don't you give the audience, who presumably won't know you well, why don't you give them just a little quick background about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. I'm from Los Angeles, born and bred in the Valley. My father's a screenwriter. My mom is a homemaker, and just grew up. I'm actually 50 years old last year, so I'm at that perfect age of being, a perfect synthesis of 70s and 80s movies clashing together in my brain. So that was my upbringing in a nutshell. These days, I work for a nonprofit. During the day, I've been at this nonprofit for 15 years, but in the evening, I am a film critic for the LA Weekly and Village Voice, which I've been doing for 5 years. It is my passion. I love it dearly, and I hope to continue doing that.
Yeah, love your work there. We are watching Firstborn this week. So obviously, you haven't seen this in a little while. Memory can be a little tricky. So just in a few sentences, we haven't obviously rewatched this before recording this, but in just a few sentences, why don't you try to describe what the basic plot of the film is? It doesn't need to be precise, just whatever you remember.
For sure. It is a great plot. It is newly, I don't mean to laugh because it's a heavy drama, but it's just, whatever. Newly divorced mother, played by Terry Garr, with 2 children, played by Christopher Collette, and a first time Corey Haim.
Yeah.
Introducing Corey Haim. And basically they live in a I don't even know where this movie's supposed to take place from my memory. It looks like Seattle, but I think it was filmed in Canada. I cannot tell, but it's a basic suburb. So single mother, 2 teenage children. The mother is starting to get lonely and sad, as single mothers just might do. And then she finally meets a man, a mysterious gentleman, who she falls in love with, played by Peter Weller, and in a really amazing actual role. It's an amazing performance by Peter Weller.
And it's pre-RoboCop.
And he moves in, and this is way pre-RoboCop. This is the first time I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. No, the first time I saw him was Shoot the Moon with Diane Keaton. Also a great film, but he was a little vicious in that film too. But this one, he's all out. Mean as a snake, and it just is. It's almost half movie of the week story of a guy who moves in with a family, but it's also half horror film, and shit ensues.
Is it sort of in the Youth and Revolt vein, or is it not quite because
a little bit?
Okay.
It definitely touches that. If you watch a lot of 80s movies, early 80s movies in particular, not to go too deep into it, but it's interesting you brought up Youth and Revolt. Youth and Revolt was big in the early 80s and late 70s, starting with movies like Over the Edge. Mm-hmm. And it just continued. This movie definitely touches on some of those themes, hence the title, Firstborn. He's Christopher Collette, who was a really good actor who just disappeared.
Yeah, it's really weird.
He was just in the Manhattan Project, and I don't really know anything else he was in. But really powerful performance, actually. He kind of represents teenage angst, but also standing up to authority in some ways.
So how old do you think you were? I mean, you've seen this since you were a kid, but how old do you think you were when you first saw this?
I saw it when it came to theaters. I saw it with my mom.
Okay.
So I must have been, it was 1984, I believe this movie came out. So I must have been about, what was I, 12?
Okay.
11 or 12.
Was it sort of Obviously, it sort of has like suspense horror elements to it. Was it a lot for a 12-year-old?
Oh my God, yes. And you know, it was one of the first PG-13 movies I've ever seen. So I didn't really know what PG-13 even meant.
Yeah, because it's
You
the
know?
first. I mean, it was like the first. It didn't become a rating until '84, right?
That's correct. I think it was. I think it literally was one of the first PG-13 movies. You know, and if I remember correct, it's PG-13. I could be wrong on that. It's definitely not rated R, but it's. But it's if it is PG, it's a heavy PG. I saw it in the theaters with my mom in Palm Springs. We were visiting my grandfather, and we were bored, so we went to the theater.
Okay.
We saw it. We were both like literally, from my memory of it, just completely shocked.
Yeah.
And it hit home a lot with me because my parents were divorced for only about 5 years at that point. So,
Okay.
but
Raw nerve.
And my mother was single, and she dated men, and so. And I have a brother who's 2 years older than me. So this movie was like a reflection of my life.
Sure.
Thank God no Peter Wellers ever came into my life. I was ready to kick some ass after that movie. I'll tell you that.
I bet. Yeah. Next guy that comes in the house better have his shit straight.
Yeah. No cocaine in this hole.
So what was it about Firstborn? Well, I guess you sort of just spoke to this, so I can skip this one. Oh, by the way, listeners, Chad's audio is a little weird. His power is out, and he's having to do this recording over the phone. So if there are any if there are any shortcomings on that front, sorry, shit happens.
Sorry about that.
No, it is absolutely not your fault that your power is out. So what memories do you have that stick out most about Firstborn?
Really, honestly, Corey Haim.
Okay.
I'd never seen him before, and honestly, when I saw his star rise, it did not shock me because as everyone talked about whatever his big first movies, I think Lucas would be the first movie that people really discussed him. I already knew who he was, really, because of Firstborn, and I already knew he was an absolute natural talent.
Yeah.
And he was so freaking good in this movie and so believable. And I haven't seen Firstborn in a while, but I'll tell you, like the performances in this movie outshine some of the script material that is a little problematic, but the performances were great. And that's what I took away, because I was his age in that film. So it was kind of like watching myself.
Yeah, he was your analog.
Yes, he was my analog, exactly. And that's the main thing I took away.
Okay.
I was really watching him.
Right, because he's your proxy. Yeah.
He's my proxy, and my brother would be the one who would be, the Christopher Colette character. And the thing I do like about the movie I took away also is I didn't even know what a firstborn was when I saw it necessarily. I didn't even conceptually. I'd never looked at my brother as a first anything or a second anything. And walking away, I always looked at him a little differently from then on, saying, "Oh shit, you're the badass, huh? You're the firstborn. You're gonna take care of this shit."
I'm just fucking Corey Haim in this.
Yeah, I'm just the punk ass kid who just puts you down and makes fun of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what expectations do you have returning to this for the first time in a while?
For sure. I'm actually really now that I'm actually, watching films in a different way than I was a kid, especially for work. The first thing I try to, not to be pretentious, but it's just the truth. When I'm going to write a piece, for example, I approach it with craft.
Sure.
Instead of just pure emotion, right? So I'm really interested in seeing. I think it's Michael Apted.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and he's interesting because he made a very popular documentary series in England. That went on forever.
It's still going. 2019, they did it again, and they'll probably do another one in 2016.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I watched them not that long ago, and they're incredibly beautifully crafted.
Yeah.
And so I'm going into this to look at the craft and see if there's any documentary feel to this film at all.
Because he also did Incident at Oglala, which is really great.
Which one?
Incident at Oglala, the pre-Thunderheart thing that he did about Leonard Peltier. So good.
Loved it. Yeah. Saw that years ago. Loved it.
I rewatched it recently. It really holds up.
I got to watch it again now. You see, that I saw that when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a natural documentarian and a real talent. So I want to see how he approached not only a fictional story, but a fictional like family story that's so intimate. I want to see if there's a documentary feel to any of this. And the thing is, when I thought of him and I saw how visceral the film was when I was a kid, there is a bit of documentary film feel to this film because everything feels so damn intense and real and in the now, you know.
Yeah.
So that is, I'm really looking forward to approaching it to see the craft,
right,
of which it was made.
Yeah, no, it is really interesting going back and watching and like, oh, weird, especially like when you're coming at it from like a creative standpoint, like, oh, I wonder what that choice, like what the rationale behind the choice was, or like how their background is informing, how the director's background's informing the work.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, yeah, for sure. And the background of the work, I'm looking forward to seeing Peter Weller at his freshest.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he is
great
circa, like, you know, in this mid 80s range, you know, RoboCop, Shakedown, this, he can really bring it.
He can, and I really like actors in their early careers when they're really hungry.
Yeah.
You know, after they experienced fame, and sometimes they're great, you know, and blah, 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 but there's a temperament that comes down a notch.
Right.
And then when they're really hungry, like De Niro and Mean Streets, or, you know, or Pacino and Panic, and, you know,
Dog Day Pacino, so amazing, yeah.
Or chewing the scenery like no one's business, and it's beautiful. I felt like this performance was like that, like,
yeah.
But it's also not, from what I remember, not overkill. It's a measured, interesting kind of internal performance at the same time of a guy who I never stopped thinking about. Even all these years later, I'm like, that character is so strange, but he's very realistic at the same time. There's a lot of men who are in their, I think he's supposed to be in his early 30s, and it's around that age you start feeling like a failure if you haven't achieved certain things in life. And I think that he's representative of some, you know, us dudes in their early 30s who just hit a wall and don't know how to go around it. So I'm looking forward to that too, to see if there's any layers to that character or if it's just one dimensional, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Apted's got a weird filmography. You know, he has all these like standout documentary works. I mean, the Up series is like crazy. But he's also got like, he did a fucking James Bond movie, you know?
Which one?
The World Is Not Enough. Where you're just like, wait, what? Or wow. He did the Chronicles of Narnia movie. You know, like,
oh my God.
It's so weird because he also did Nell. I mean, around this time he still hasn't like ramped up. Like he did Gorillas in the Mist shortly after this. He had just done Coal Miner's Daughter. So like I think you're getting more Coal Miner's Daughter apted probably with this than you are The World Is Not Enough. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because I prefer that way more than the director for hire he obviously became.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And a lot of great directors started off with their almost natural instincts and then became directors for hire in the late 80s and 90s.
Right. Especially like once you have the bomb or once you have the like vanity project that, you know, goes awry, then you're kind of stuck doing whatever they'll pay you to do instead of getting to like write your checks kind of, you know?
It happened to a lot of them, and they were just lucky enough to, you know, most famously directors like Robert Aldrich and people like that back in the, you know, who in the 50s were making amazing films, and it made some good films towards the end, but also was just worked all the time.
Yeah.
So he's in the lineage of those guys, and but at the same time made the Up series and made Coal Miner's Daughter. You know, I don't know if he was nominated for Coal Miner's Daughter.
He was nominated for Nell,
I'm sure.
I think, but and that might have just been as producer, not director. But
of all the movies, jeez.
I know.
All right,
well. We'll dive into Apted a lot more next week, but
I look forward to it.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a man of mystery, just like the character of Peter Weller.
Yeah, very fascinated with his body of work. I have a vague recollection of this movie, but I've definitely not seen it in like 20 years.
Oh, you're kidding! Oh, I'm glad I picked a good one. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, no. I honestly didn't remember seeing it until I was thinking more and more about and I was like, oh no, I have seen Terry Garr like as Corey Haim's mom. I know I've seen this. I have seen this, but I barely remember it. Like, it is just a phantom memory, basically.
I'm so happy to hear that, because when you rewatch it, there's no spoilers in this statement, but there is one thing that when Robbie Robertson recently died, I was re-listening to the band a lot. Yeah. And there is a moment with the band's music in this movie, which is actually one of my favorite moments in any 80s film. Nice. And it has to do with a pool table. Mm-hmm. And Peter Weller and Terry Garr and the band blasting at a party. And I'm telling you, that scene, that's pure Apted documentary, because I grew up in a Hollywood household. And let me tell you, sir, when you're a kid and you walk into that living room and the lights are red and the couches are leather and they're blasting the Eagles or the band, shit's going down. And that scene captured it so beautifully with such a brooding darkness. I still think of, so when Robbie Robertson died, I'm like, I'm just thinking of Peter Weller in a pinball.
Nice.
Whatever. So that's the scene for me, man. I don't know. I gotta rewatch it, but I guarantee you that'll still be the scene for me.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something to look forward to. Since we're on at the whimsy of your cell carrier, we'll wrap up the pre-interview here. Thank you so much for joining us, Chad. Look forward to watching this.
Thanks, Josh.
And we'll
look forward to it.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm very jazzed for this.
Do me a favor, stand up. I want to see your Slow Dive shirt. Oh, that's a beauty. Where'd you get that? Did you get that at the show?
Yeah.
Were you at that show, the last one at the smaller venue?
No, I'm in the cities now.
Where are you?
Twin Cities.
You are? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't publicize it loudly on social media. I'm actually working. I'll be in LA working for the Valentine's Day week is when the American Cinematheque show rescheduled for.
Awesome, man.
So I'll be there then for that. But I'll be working with Mari on that.
Fantastic. Let me know when you're out here for sure.
Yeah,
and I saw that tour, and that was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, It was phenomenal. Such a great show. Okay, I'm going to let the audience go now. We can stay on for a second. But thanks again for joining us, Chad.
Thank you, sir.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate and review Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Yelp, IMDb, Consumer Reports, Google Reviews, and TripAdvisor. Links to all of our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as @UnkindRewindPod on nearly every social media platform that makes sense. If you had a question, concern, complaint, or positive feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com. or you can join the lively Muchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue with the pod may just make it into the next week's ep, so chat away. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.